was volumes 1, 2, and 3 of David Latham's Straight Bullets. These are these oversized collections that collect, depending on the volume, 7 to 8 issues of the original Straight Bullets run. I had never read this. Actually, when this was first published, all these volumes, I wasn't even reading comics. I had gotten out of comics in the early 90s and only got back in 2001. I should tell that story sometime. And I wouldn't have appreciated independent comics. I was still in the superhero headspace. But I remember getting at MegaCon the small trade, which included the first 4 issues that are included here, but it was regular comic book size. This is really nice oversized books on matte paper. Just the art really prints well. It's interesting because these books were $34.95. You know, they were asking for that 28 years ago. And that was a lot of money for a graphic novel collection back then. Like now, the standard price now is $34.95, $39.99 for a regular sized book. But back then, that was a lot of money. So these things for $5 each. Just really great, has all this back matter. Just very cool. As I said to myself when I read the first volume that I got, as I mentioned earlier, I said, if I ever see these on the cheap, I'll pick them up. So each one of these was $5. So this is about 22 issues of comics, oversized. I'll just get you a regular sized comic so you can compare. This is a regular sized comic. This is the oversized. Not gonna have time to read this, but I'm really looking forward to reading it. I read the first 3 issues and I loved it. Next, at that same table with Straight Bullets, I picked up this issue of Conan Saga. This is issue number 5. I've seen these, and this collects in black and white, the Red Nail story. I have an old Marvel Treasury edition of it, but you know, those things are newsprint, they're cheap newsprint, they fade. But I'm always curious about getting these, but when I seen them in the wild, they've always been $10, $15. People want to ask $20 for them. So I found this for $5, which is really like the eBay price, basically. And this features Barry Windsor Smith's work, some of the early issues, back when Barry Windsor Smith was just Barry Smith. Just really lovely art. I always think that his work, especially with, since it was meant for color, this looks better in color. When he did Monsters was meant as black and white, so I think he drew in a way that lent itself more than black and white, but just the work here is just amazing. This is when you could tell, like, there's little subtle, in my mind, subtle nods to his influence from Jack Kirby here and here in some of these faces, but this elegance that he had as an artist just really in full force here with Conan. Because Conan is muscular, but he isn't Jack, like, you know, like they made him look like Arnold Schwarzenegger later on almost. Just really great work. So I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna see if it's worth getting the other, I think issues 1 through 10 cover the Barry Windsor Smith era, and I'm gonna see if it's worth it or not to pick up the other issues, because they're really not that expensive. It's just that I have so much stuff now between buying ongoing graphic novels, SPX, and now Ultracon, that I just need to put the brakes on buying stuff or really curtail it back, as I always say. Next, I picked up issues 4 through 9 of 2001: A Space Odyssey. This was the series that was written, edited, and drawn by Jack Kirby, inks by Mike Royer. After the publication of the Marvel Treasury edition of Kirby's adaptation of 2001: A Space Odyssey, this lasted 10 issues. These will never be reprinted because of rights. They're not terribly expensive either. And I got them at a table, and it was the last table I saw because the guy was one of these guys that doesn't have his books priced. So you always have to be really wary about those guys, because you really have to know the price of what you're looking for and what the price should be. And I use that as a price, sold prices on eBay. And I'll throw in like shipping, because if you buy a book for 20 bucks, but then you got to pay $5 shipping, then it really costs you 25. And also sales tax that they charge you on eBay. So I use that as my barometer. And so these were more $10 each, and I kind of like was like, well, whatever. But then he said, listen, I'll give you 2 for 25. So they came out to be 6 for 25 bucks. So it came out to be a little bit over $4 each, which to me is a great price. These books are just great. They're just full of Kirby goodness. And this was also the series in which Machine Man debuted. So let me see if I can find something that shows. Okay, here's one. I mean, Kirby did this in '76. He was 69 years old. Just love this great big panel here. There's just that double page spread. I just really enjoy it. As I gotten older, I really appreciate Kirby's work as far as the energy and the inventiveness and unique angles. Like here, he has this 2-page spread, but then right here is a smaller panel that focuses on this leader just screaming with his eyes bulging and his mouth wide open. Just classic kind of Kirby stuff. I liked some of these later on 70s items that they let Kirby write and draw. And there's other ones here. I don't know what the story is. I know it ended after 10 issues. So if I'm going to read these, and if I like these, I can always pick up the other, I guess, 4 issues that I would have to pick up. And there's Machine Man. I think Machine Man debuted in issue 1. I think they called them X-51. But just really cool stuff. And a lot of the attractiveness is that I want to read some Kirby. You don't see these reprinted. These are not going to be reissued anytime ever. Just to kind of get some of that 70s Kirby vibe. So I was happy to pick these up for 25 bucks. This was a good deal. This is Silver Surfer Parable. Let me come in a little bit lower. This is the 2-issue miniseries that was written by Stan Lee, drawn by Moebius, but really it was Moebius that came up with the script. I mean, in interviews he said it. I think Stan Lee just did what he always did. He got guys to come up with the plot and the idea and the story and the art, and then he, as Alan Moore would say, added a few these and thous, and then said, I'm the writer. And I have this in the Epic hardcover that came out in the late 80s. I've read this in the oversized collection that I checked out from the library. I'll just be honest, and I said this before, the story is absolute trash. Moebius was just basically just come up with some kind of story, maybe given some guidelines. This was that era where Stan Lee kept coming up with Silver Surfer one-shots, and the rumor is that Stan Lee kept pitching these as one-shots, but they were really movie pitches because he really thought the Silver Surfer was going to be the character that could break through to the mainstream in the movies. As I said, the story's trash, makes no sense. But when you come here with Moebius is the art. And I'm a big believer that a real comic, a really good comic, has to have story and good art. Doesn't have to be 50-50, but it has to have both. I think a comic with very little story or poorly written story and great art, to me, I have no interest in reading. But for Moebius, I'll make an exception because the art is so good that to me, it's like, okay, you don't get story, or the story doesn't make any sense or whatever, but look at that art. I think he's the one exception I have. And this is issue 1. This cover is amazing. Again, this one is a little bit more yellow than 2, but he does a great job drawing Galactus. Issue 2 is all the fighting and the action, and this is where Moebius really shines. I really wish Moebius would have done more superheroes, or if he was only going to do 2 comics for Marvel ever, I wish Stan would have had the humility to let him work with writers they had at the time that probably could have gotten more out of Mobius in a 2-page spread. I mean, as much as I don't like Chris Claremont, I mean, he's okay. I think he just got lucky with a lot of, he was inventive, came with a lot of great ideas. Some of his actual writing and the dialogue, I'm not a fan of, but he also worked with a lot of great artists. But you see this, some of the inventive use of like having this, just an outline except for the eyes. Just these close-ups of Galactus. This looks very much like the Galactus we saw in Fantastic Four, the movie, the current good one. Just really interesting stuff. I really dig this. I really dig this as well. I think that this is just for me to like stare at the art, so I have to keep opening up the hardcover. If I see Mobius somewhere and it's reasonably priced, there's a good chance I'm going to end up buying it. That's like, as far as artists go, my personal favorites are he and Barry Windsor Smith. That's just guys that like, I have, and Bill Sienkiewicz also, but these are the guys that like, if I see their art, I'm going to like, it's going to be hard to say no. And lastly, at that same table with the dealer that did not price his books, I found this issue of Heavy Metal. He actually had, this is like the 3rd issue, I believe, just June 1977. He actually had May 1977, September 1977. In my experience, I usually don't run across these books. And they were actually in pretty good condition. So I was kind of surprised. And then I saw this cover, and I know this is a Mobius cover, and I seen it reprinted. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh boy, you know, it's already calling me because I'm a Mobius fan. So I actually did Google when I was there looking at it, because his stand was kind of quiet. I think people look, when they say no price, then a lot of times some dealers get a little greedy and try to like give you a price that makes no sense. So there was nobody there. So I had time to sit there and look. And there's sites that you can Google all these issues where you can find out who did what work, because I just didn't want to buy it for the cover. I wanted to see if there's any good stuff in there. And I was fortunate. There's work by Drouet, Bodie, Corbin, as well as Mobius. So I'm going to do a separate video just to kind of go over this magazine more, because some of the work here is phenomenal. This is the back cover by Drouet, who I've become a fan of. I just wish that him and Kazan and all these other guys that did this awesome work in the 70s and 80s would get reprinted in color or in a larger format in America. That's the only thing that I'd like to read it in English if I could, but I think I'm just going to have to end up getting the French versions, because at least you can see the art. So having said that, the way the deal shook down was he wanted 50 for this, and I just said, no, that's okay. And I put it back. And then at the same time, it's the same dealer that had the Mobius books. And the Mobius books were listed as 10. I think he screwed up, but it was stickered at 10. So he says he doesn't have any prices, but he stickered it at 10. And these books usually run 20 bucks for the set of 2, plus shipping and sales tax. So he said, okay, how about I'll throw these in for 50, which then made it, the eBay prices for this is like usually 30 plus shipping plus tax, and this is 20. So basically I got it for the eBay price less with like free shipping and no sales tax. So I didn't rip them off. I paid market value, which is fair. So that's what I did. And then after I bought this, I texted my son and said, hey man, I am out of here. I have done enough damage. And that was how my comic shopping went. It was very big on Marvel and Big Two. I did not plan that. I really don't read superheroes anymore, but this is classic stuff that is, I got it for a good price, and I was excited to get these Stray Bullets. And that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.